Howdy, happy Thursday. It is the all-new SportsCage. Barney, Shynkaruk, and Chris Harris for the next 3 hours talking sports, talking riders, talking Hardy Cup. Hockey, the NCAA has passed it. CHL players are allowed to go get a scholarship NCAA-wise. We talked about it yesterday. We knew it was coming. Arash Madani joins us. Glen, Suitor. Wray Morrison, voice of the U of S Huskies, to talk Hardy Cup. It's a jam-packed 3 hours. There's no doubt about it. It is football season. We're going to sprinkle in a little Friday Night Lights, talk high school ball, who's doing what there. And then the big thing, one of the big things, 1989, great year, great cup. Go John Gregory. It was yesterday that Degrassi Junior High debuted, Harry, in 1989. Makes a guy feel really old, and then it takes a guy back to all those episodes, coming home. See, the people have to, the kids, like the CNC production company over here. Wake up in the morning feeling shine on the tree. I gotta go to school. I don't think I can make it. Don't think I can take it. I wonder what I'm gonna do. Yeah, like what a song. Like, I don't know if that ever won a Juno or a Grammy.
I think the kids call it a banger. It's a banger.
We're going to get into the Zit Remedy later. But Degrassi, 1989, it taught us so much. We'll go through the lessons. The life lessons that Degrassi taught us. One of them is punctuality, because you had to be home when it started. You didn't want to pick it up 10 minutes in. No. CBC, if that's still a thing. And yeah, we only had the other thing is we only had, if you had the Max cable channel back in 1989, what were you rolling? 15 channels maybe?
Maybe 12, I'd say you'd probably top out at 12.
Because if you had one of the turny knob TVs, like we used to have, and it's like, it's on channel 15. Well, I don't have 15. I only got 12 knob positions here.
Yeah, no.
Degrassi. Yeah. Hey, the Capital Ford Lincoln text line is always open at 936-6262. Capital Ford Lincoln, Saskatchewan's #1 Ford retailer. If you got any Degrassi memories over the last 3 hours, I know I can. I'm going to go through my 2 episodes. Let's get cat out of the bag. What was your favorite episode? Is it? I hope it's not the same as mine.
No, I think probably I would have to go with the School's Out special would be my favorite episode, just because it really was like groundbreaking for television at the time. Like, they dropped F-bombs. There was like lots of sexual content, which was kind of very taboo for CBC at the time. And they kind of had a bit of a cliffhanger. It was dramatic. Like, I would say that was probably be my favorite episode, just because it was so just wow.
I don't know if I remember that one that well. Yeah. So
it was the special where they were graduated, and at the end, spoiler alert, Wheels ends up getting drunk because he's drinking now because he's having trouble with his adoptive parents' death, and he takes Lucy on a trip to go get more beer, and they get in a car wreck.
Oh, Wheels.
And she ends up blind.
Wheels.
Yeah. And Wheels just falls off the grid.
As cheesy as we look back, and we were talking in the production meeting today with Colson and Curtis, and they obviously absolutely have no idea. Like, Curtis was born literally like 12 years ago. Colson is like late in the 90s or something like that. So they have no idea what we're talking about. But I've joked about the punctuality, but there was no PVR. Like, if you were watching something on TV back then, like a sporting event, anything, like, you wanted to be home. Like when Ben Johnson raced in '88 in Seoul, I wrote it down like 6 months before, and it was written down on my poster. And it was like Luke Robitaille poster that I wrote it on, to be honest. And I knew, like, you had to be punctual, touch of punctuality. And then the lessons of the show. Oh man, off the hop.
God, I honestly, I'm almost a little embarrassed, but the amount of stuff that I remember about this show, I feel like I could do an hour at least on Degrassi.
What did I tell you guys in the production meeting? I said Harry will be able to go all day on it.
Oh God, and then the more I thought about it today, it's just like, oh yeah, and this, and like, oh God, I would embarrass myself. Like Arthur's family winning the lottery and him not wanting to tell anybody at school, like the storylines, like I could go on for hours.
Arthur, I forgot about Arthur. So we'll keep going. We'll keep going on the Degrassi thing, having fun with some of our guests with that too. News out of Rider Camp today. Closed practice. Dave Thomas, we're giving him the day off. He's got a big week. He's got a pack for Winnipeg too. So Davey's off today, but he did send us some audio because 5 riders were named to this 2024 all CFL team, and no surprises. No. And they're all very deserving. You probably could have went more. Logan Furland at guard should get some sort of key to the city, or at least the stadium forever, being able to play every position and doing what he's doing, and being a Regina guy or a local guy playing Thunder and all that. CJ Rivas, cover linebacker, of course. Roland Milligan Jr. at halfback, again, give him some sort of key. Marcus Sales, scraps from BC. We don't need them. Riders sign them. And I remember a lot of you out there in SportsCage land back in May or whenever that was, June, like Marcus Sales, well, we don't need him. Why does BC do? And now look. And then look at him last week against his former team. So Marcus Sales, super deserving. I was really actually, if there was one that was, I was maybe thinking, but he's there at cornerback. And then Roland Milligan Jr. Micah Johnson. Guy, like, hey, go play some offensive line. Go play some, this. You know what? Brett Lawther had that stretch where he didn't have the, missing the field goals. He performed. There's a lot of good kickers in the league. I would put Trevor Harris on there too. So, I know they're not going into consideration what happened yesterday, but or last week. I mean, Harris could have been on there. Solid team, and to think, and we talked about this earlier. Like, I haven't talked to you about this, Harry, but like last year, where everything, like at this point last year, it was like under the rug, flushed. If your sports show was talking riders, it probably wasn't positive, and no one really wanted to talk about riders at this point. 12 months later, new coach, new coaching staff, some new players. Boom, look where we are.
It's amazing what a difference a year makes. And then even just like, some fresh faces, fresh perspective. It's almost like it got a reboot. They pulled the 8-bit cartridge out, blew it, and put it back in, and it powered up, and it's you're ready to play ice hockey again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Blowing the cartridges is always, speaking of Degrassi in 1989. Then if you got wise, you use rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip, Hobbs style. Really clean things up. Really clean things up. Like I said, Dave Thomas has audio for us. He did, Micah? Yeah, we got Micah Johnson and Dave Thomas here on the award.
Micah Johnson, congratulations. 4th time in your career you're named an all-CFL defensive tackle. What's it like to get that accolade?
You put in a lot of work. You put in work over the offseason all throughout the year. So, to get acknowledgement for what you're doing is always fun. It's always fun.
Now, throughout your career, you've been on a number of championship teams. Are there any similarities between the character and the group that they were? Because you often hear about how tight the locker room was in those instances. Any similarity between those teams and the one that you're with in the room down just the hall from here?
Nah, for sure I do. I think football is a very, very tough game, right? And it puts you in a lot of crazy positions, puts you in business decision moments, as people like to say. So I feel like the closer of a group you are, the more you love your brother off the field, you'll go harder for him on the field. And you'll sell out. You'll put your body on the line, for the guys. And I think if that was a quality, of championship teams in the past, was just the closeness of the group, because it just allows you just to strain that much harder for your guy next to him. Like, your guy's situation next to you, what he's playing for, his family members, what he's going through, what he's trying to accomplish or where he's trying to get to. So the more you know about that, about your brother next to you, you'll go harder, you'll play harder for him. So it's to me in sports, it's no coincidence that, anybody that wins a championship afterwards, when you're talking about them, they just all say the same thing. It's about the group. And I don't think that's cliche. I think that holds a lot of weight.
So what do you need to do to take a step closer to that Grey Cup championship this weekend?
Just do what we've been doing, man. Just go 1-0 this week. I think this team has a lot of character, and it shows what all we went through. The things that this team went through, I really haven't seen that or going through that on any team. And just the fact that we're still standing right here, in the finals, I think that says everything. And not at one point did we fold our tent. Not at one point did we think, we weren't going to be here. It was just more so the route, how we were going to have to get here. So, that's the biggest thing.
Your defensive line group is, of course, going to face a tough test with Brady Oliveira. How can you limit his effectiveness?
It's always tough. He's a very patient runner. I think that's one of his best qualities. They do a good job of trying to put you in situations where, you have extra gaps on the edge, or just you have to play sound, disciplined football. I think that's the biggest thing with them. Because with Brady, he has the patience. He'll wait. In the moment one person's out of his gap, it's like he's guaranteed to find it every time. So he'll make you pay. So just discipline when you're playing them, and just everybody just focusing on doing their job.
Another tough quarterback matchup that you're going to have to battle this week in Zach Caleros. How big is it going to be to get pressure on him?
It's very crucial, man. Zach's a great quarterback. Zach's a Hall of Fame quarterback. When you go against vets like that, it's not too much that they haven't seen, or, you could throw at them, from a coverage standpoint. So for us, it's just about, getting to him as a D-line, making him as uncomfortable as he can be, keeping him in the pocket as well. I think people kind of sleep on his mobility. Like, he might not be a burner, but he maneuvers in the pocket well, and when he gets out the pocket, he can extend plays. And it's almost like, they always find that deep person, that deep threat. So I think as a D-line, like, we're taking a lot of onus on ourselves for this game, and not just affecting the passing game, but in the running game, man. Like, we feel like we can really affect this game as a D-line, and, we're taking that challenge on.
What are you figuring on Saturday, Harry, as we haven't talked yet about it?
I think my immediate reaction is that Harris doesn't have to be unbelievable. He has to be good. And I think it's solely going to rely on what the Riders do on the defensive side of the ball. So if the defense comes like they have all year, then Harris just has to get the job done. He doesn't have to be flashy. He doesn't have to do anything exceptional. He doesn't have to carry the game. So I feel like if the defense can do their job, then it really frees Harris up just to kind of go out and just be himself instead of having to like press or try to fit balls in places where he's trying to make something happen. That's how I see it, but what the hell do I know?
I'm curious as the more I think about it, and as we go along and talk for the week, and we talk to Harris on Monday, is having, they haven't released who's in and who's out and positional charts and all that, but you got Armstead and Ouellette back there again, and maybe they don't run as much as people thought, but we're just people, right? We're not the coaches. They know what's best. I think that the play action game on both sides of the ball could be key. And I think we were talking, I don't know if this was production meeting or on the show yesterday, is the Bombers don't necessarily run the ball. Like, Oliveira won't run the ball. Like, they'll just do the quick little dump off passes, right? And then that opens up, okay, well, there's something else there. So what defensive changes do we make knowing that might be their go-to? And then if we take that away, okay, then what is the next thing? Just like for them, if they have a way to take Ouellette out of the game, let's say running on first down, because second and short, just like in the NFL, third and manageable, or third, you want, that is so key. So if AJ hammers the rock or Armstead and picks up that 5 or 6 yards on a first down carry, it is like that. It's just so important. Same thing on the other side of the ball as well. If we all of a sudden start putting them in second and long, and we get to them a few times, like I talked about before, I got to be in. I'm very, very curious how much they get in his face. And it's not dirty, but maybe, every chance you get to try and hit him, especially early, you got to hit him. He doesn't want to be hit. Not many quarterbacks do. Like Strevler probably, even though I don't consider him necessarily like a quarterback, quotations,
right.
He's out. But, you just want to disrupt him. And if you can get in his face early, just like that goalie in hockey that's maybe a little, can lose his game a bit, is that something the Riders do as well? The defense is scary. Like,
very.
But Winnipeg is so well coached, and there is the experience factor. I don't put a lot of stock in that. Like, yes, experience is great, but also youthful exuberance and full of piss and vinegar, whatever you want to call it, I think that trumps experience a lot of times. And you have experience on the Riders. Like Harris has been there. Ouellette's been there. The number of guys that have been there and done this. The other thing too, though, right? Like that a loud crowd and disrupting, counts and cadences. It's a factor.
Well, 100%. I was going to say the crowd, it could basically come down to the crowd too. But the thing about having experience is that it works the other way. Like you said, like there's something to be said for blissful ignorance too, where guys don't know the magnitude of it or they've never been there before and they're experiencing it. Like, I don't think you can understate how important that can be too, where guys come in and they're cocksure and whatever and not too worried about, nothing phases me. And like, as important as experience is, I also think that these guys having new experiences and having guys that haven't been there before is just as important.
And what's the play early? There's always, we look back to the last BC regular season game where the ball bounces off a guy's arse and then foot and then into another guy. Like, what is the play in this game early that happens? Same with the Hardy Cup with the Rams and Huskies. Is there going to be something quirky that happens early? And, it's just like, hey, stay in the game. Especially if that happens first quarter, whatever. You got to wash it. We don't have game 2, 3, 4 to get back into a series or anything. You just got to flush it. We got to go something. I think something quirky, something stupid, something unforeseen is going to happen on one side of the ball, and it's going to be like, all right, how do you respond to that? And then how much, I don't know, to you, special teams can always be a factor, right?
Yeah, I mean, Alfred's been quiet for a number of weeks. He hasn't really had the room to operate that he had early on in the season. I think your game plan going in first quarter is don't make it easy. Don't give up easy points. You're going to give up points. Both these offenses also have the ability to be very explosive. So are they going to score? Are you going to go score for score? You have the confidence to do it, but don't give it easily. You've got to make them work for it. And then the bounces are going to come, or you're going to not get bounces, but you can't let that dictate how you go. It's just got to be, just make it as hard as you can early on.
If you're watching the stream, Curtis, video editor extraordinaire, was just playing the home game here. That was the Labor Day game, right?
Yeah, that was when you were talking about special teams and stuff. That was when Mario Alford kind of missed it, and then he. Can
you play it again?
Winnipeg scored. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're watching that stream, like this is just fluky. This is just weird
for sure.
How it bounces here, and then into the end zone. But you know what? Again, flush it. And I remember so many people were just, oh no, how stupid! He cost us the game. That cost you the game? That early in a football game? No, it's not how it works. If the game maybe finishes 6-0,
I don't think there's not a sport on the planet where it comes down to one play.
Yeah, true.
I've always disliked that expression where it's like that play cost us the game. Well, it didn't, because there's 16 plays that happened before that could have gone another way, and so it should never come down to one play.
It is the all-new Sports Cage. There's so much to talk about. Riders and, of course, the Hardy Cup. Rams and Huskies. We are going to talk to head coach of the Rams, Mark McConkey, as well, our regular Thursday chat. I'm looking forward to chatting with him because he said, hey, I'll chat with you next Thursday. And sure enough, here we are again on Thursday. So that's coming up, I think, in the first hour as well. It is the all-new Sports Cage. Chris Harris, Barney, Shynkaruk, the C's are with us. You are watching that stream at sportscage.com, and we are on the home of the Riders, 620 CKRM. It's all right. It's all good. We're trying to come back. I got the boys working on a couple different angles here. Coming back with a little Degrassi. 1989, released yesterday. What this lady's doing nowadays, sang or wrote this song, and it hasn't been remade. Like, you think that you'd go to some of these Canadian artists and watch them, and they'd be like, all right, who remembers this one? And then the Zit Remedy song, like I said, we'll get to that in a bit. Barney and Harry here talking football and talking Degrassi. We didn't. So 1989, let's say it was 1990. You know, I'm already 35 years ago. Yeah. So I'm already 13, 14. I didn't need the lesson really of don't get into somebody's vehicle that you don't know.
Right.
Like, that's something that you kind of teach somebody, you know, when they're 4 and 5. I remember, you know, I did teach our kids that, but. And then the kids are smarter these days. Sorry, Curtis.
You know what? I don't think we're smarter these days, because it was always don't get into a stranger's car. And then it was don't talk to strangers on the internet. And now it's order a stranger on the internet and get in their car.
Yeah, Uber. That's a good one. But the Wheels vacuum salesman episode, like. You can't. Like, you got like that. That's a life lesson there. You just never know. I can't remember where he was hitchhiking to. Was he hitchhiking to see his real dad? Port Hope.
I think
Port
so.
Hope comes to mind. Something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it was right early in the episode. Fatal flaw. Like, come on, Wheels. What? No, Wheels. What are you doing? But yeah, no. It taught just reinsured that lesson that. Hey, you just don't go riding around with guys in weird station wagons with vacuum parts in the back. So yeah, all the lessons that we learned from Degrassi. 1989, heck of a year for the Riders. Heck of a year for the U of S Huskies as well. They were starting to be a wagon. It's the Rams and Huskies at Griffith Stadium. Do any matchups of those two come to mind for you? Or do they all kind of blend together when Rams and Huskies maybe? Because we were both 2001-ish, we were both doing the global sports thing in Saskatoon. The rivalry was there, but the Huskies were always maybe just a little bit better after that because the Rams, you know, were that 2000 year, they were good. 2002 as well. Does anything come to mind?
There's nothing that jumps out off the page at me. It was just the intensity of the rivalry. It was a big deal, especially because there's some personalities like you mentioned yesterday, like Frank McChrystal is a personality, right? And he's a key figure in the establishing of that rivalry. So it's just more that it was a big deal when those teams met, and there was always something to prove from one or the other or both. And there was nobody wanted to give an inch to the other program.
And then Frank talked about this yesterday. What do we got? We got 2023 numbers here. That U of R, 16,860 students in the fall of 2023. University of Saskatchewan, 26,694. So, you know, not as bad. And it back though, I think in the 2000s, it would have been even a heavier gap. So not that much now. Again, not a lot of students these days. Like, I don't even know what the percentage would be that are football players. But yeah, like this U of S has always been the bigger school, the power. They had a great football program. Some massive backers came out, you know, when they wanted to reno it when they hosted that Vanier Cup against Laval. But no slouch down here as well with the Rams. Some big donors as well. They've done some great things. I've always wondered, though, the U of R, and I get you got the awesome facility at Mosaic now, Taylor Field, that they never went with building something on campus just a little smaller, a little more intimate, that you can maybe fit, that 3,000 to 5,000. Then you kind of control if you wanted to do pre-tailgate. There's a number of fields there. All that. It's very tough. And then you have the partnership with the Riders. And I don't know if there's a partnership with the city, but something there. Yeah, like it's because Griffith, I don't know what the exact attendance, what Griffith holds now, but when they did expand it for the Vanier, it can be loud and it can be an advantage as well, for sure.
Well, and I feel when I look back at that 2002 game where last time that they met in the Hardy Cup, it was at Taylor Field, right? And it was it has the record. It's the highest attended Hardy Cup game. I think it was 5,600 people, but that basically becomes a neutral site game because you've got Saskatchewan people filling up, and it's such a huge stadium that any noise that is there gets drowned out by just the acoustics of the stadium. So how much would they have been better served if they did have that small 1,500 seat stadium and it's all Regina in that game? Like the little things like that.
There are alumni of both programs playing in the West Final in Winnipeg this weekend. Dave Thomas caught up with Riders, former U of R Mitchell Picton, and he talks about obviously the stadium in Winnipeg being loud first off, but then he talks about the Hardy Cup and the rivalry.
Mitchell Picton, how are you feeling headed into this West Division final?
Very excited. Big one this week. But at the end of the day, it's just another football game, right? So we got to go out and go 1-0 this week. The stakes are a little bit higher, but at the end of the day, it's just 4 quarters of football that we got to go out and play winning ball.
The question everybody's asking, are you ready for the atmosphere that you're going to encounter?
Yeah. They've got a passionate fan base, just like we do here. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be a packed building, and they're a very good team as well. So just a tough place to go and play in that regard.
Now, we know how it can affect cadence and calls on the offensive line, that noise, but what does the noise and the crowd do to receivers?
The biggest thing is the waggle in motion for us. So, you got to work the silent count because we're not going to be able to hear Trevor. So, that'd be the biggest thing is timing and with our waggles and our motions.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask if you were excited about the other big game on Saturday.
Yeah, Rams Dogs. Don't have any bets on the line right now. I'm going to have to talk to Nelson here and get something cooking. But super cool for the two schools in Saskatchewan. And, U of R, I think, has the upper hand this week.
So as a former Ram, what does the rivalry with the University of Saskatchewan mean?
Yeah, it's a big deal. To people outside of Saskatchewan, they might not understand it, but I think to both teams, it's a big deal, something that I still hold in high regard. Still have a little bit of distaste for the Huskies, and hopefully the Rams can get it done this week.
Have you talked to any of the Rams organization this week?
I am confident. I haven't reached out to any of the players. I've talked to Coach Mark McConkey. Me and him are still pretty close. So, I've talked to him a little bit and a couple of the other coaches that I played with back in the day.
And if you had a chance, would you share any advice?
Yeah, I might reach out and talk to him a little bit. But again, it's a big deal. It's the Hardy Cup. But at the end of the day, again, just like our game, it's 4 quarters of football. You got to go out and play well. So, again, the goal is just 1-0. The stakes are a little bit higher. But at the end of the day, it's just another football game. You got to go out and win.
Yeah, it's just another football game. You got to go out and win. But you're nervous.
Yeah. I think it's anything but any other football game. It's not week 2 in Ottawa.
Yeah.
It's a big game. You got to acknowledge that sometimes and lean into it.
Hardy Cup, West Final. They're not just another football game. They're big football games. They're championships. Yeah. Capital Ford Lincoln text line. Are you ready to almost pee your pants laughing here?
Can't wait.
Scott Forrest chiming in from Saskatoon. Shout out Scotty, Flyers zone. Not a bad quarterback back in his day as well up there. Not bad. I'll say not bad. So I asked the question on where Wheels was going, and the kids were going. It's how many years, Colson? 35? 35 years ago, Degrassi debuted, Degrassi Junior High, when Harry and I were talking about life lessons you learn from Degrassi. Don't hitchhike and don't take rides from strangers like vacuum salesmen. So Scott chimes in. He says, Wheels was going to Port Hope to see his dad, Mike, and his band, Mike and the Drifters.
Wow. That is a deep pull. That is impressive. That is... I got nothing. Like that's a pull and a half right there.
I gotta watch that episode tonight. It is the all-new Sports Cage streaming at sportscage.com. I'm crying if you're watching that. And we are on the radio 620 CKRM. All right, welcome back. The all-new Sports Cage. Barney, Shynkaruk, and Chris Harris. Still a lot to come. If you missed anything, you can always get it in podcast form. Go back and listen. We got Arash Madani in hour 2. We're going to talk a lot of CFL with Arash. Ken Wiebe, the Winnipeg Free Press. We're going to talk about the Bombers, but we're going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, some NHL there, as he is the beat writer for the Winnipeg Jets. Hour 3, we have Glen Suitor, and then Ray Morrison, W-Ray from Saskatoon. He calls the Huskies games up there, former STV, before he was even global, and we worked there. Ray, he's a legend. He actually calls a really good football game. So we're going to talk to him about the Hardy Cup memories from the past, and of course a little bit of Riders there with Ray in hour 3 as well. If you're following our social and just socials in general, you're going to know we talked about it yesterday. It was a slam dunk. Wayne Crozier was on with us that the NCAA CHL hockey debacle, transfer movement, it's now done. The vote's gone through. It is happening where kids are going to be allowed to play major junior hockey and still go down and play NCAA if they want or if they're wanted. The guy that kind of started this all, pretty cool. Now, it was a couple months ago, Braxton Whitehead from the Regina Pats. He's joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Braxton, thanks so much. I love it. First off, you're fixing your hair as you came on. It's like every hockey player now in North America has that hair that you have. Like my son's 13, he's rolling that hair, and then he's got the hat with the wingers out the side. Do you do that as well?
Yeah, usually. I actually got a haircut a few days ago, so the wings are sadly gone, but they'll come back soon.
They'll be back. They'll be back when you guys are on your BC swing. So perfect. What a day, right? Like what's the emotion for you in this? Everyone was kind of pointed at it. It was a slam dunk, 99%. But for you, the guy that kind of came out and pioneered this movement, what's the emotion like for you on a day like today?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting, not going to lie. I was on the ice when the decision went through, so I didn't know right off the bat. But I kind of had some good intel that it was going to go through. So, yeah, just really excited and looking forward to, finishing this year in the WHL and then making that transition. So.
How do things change now as far as what you're allowed to say or talk to ASU? Because it was like the verbal commitment and all that. Like how does it change now that everything's legit and above board?
I assume sometime soon I'd sign my NLI and then kind of go from there. Obviously, this just happened, so this is pretty foreign information to me too. I don't know how this whole college commitment thing works. Because everybody that I've been surrounded by here in Canada is, always signing AHL and NHL deals, which is also pretty cool. But I'm not sure how this all works, and I'm just kind of excited to go through the process.
When we talked, I guess like I said, like over a month ago now, and I just said like how many texts, how many calls are you fielding from guys? Like, how did you do this? Why did you do it? What's the proper way and all that? And I'm sure now it's been absolutely nuts on advice that you've been giving players. Can you kind of capsulize that for us or explain, how it's been for you being a kind of a mediator in all this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I kind of, I guess you could say, was the first one to do it, pioneered it in a sense. But now, all my buddies, whether they're playing in Spokane, whether they're here at the Pats, whether, they played in the WHL and now are kind of, in the USHL or the NAL. They're all kind of, using me for advice, like, hey, how should I go about this? Should I send my letters to coaches, or should I send them to the, team where, they have somebody look through the letters for them, kind of stuff like that. So I honestly, a lot of those questions I don't really know, but I don't think there's anything wrong with sticking your foot out there, and that's what I've been telling my buddies to do. So try and put your name out there. It's exciting.
Obviously, Braxton, this is a positive thing, and it just opens so many more avenues for guys to extend their career. But have you, in this process, has there been anything negative, or people like kind of questioned why this should happen or that this shouldn't happen? Like, have you had to deal with that side of it at all?
No, personally I haven't. Everything's been extremely positive, but I mean, I can see both sides. Like, I think that there will be some leagues hurt by this decision, but it's kind of the way that things go. And, hockey's an evolving sport, and this is one of the changes that I think has to be made to, make it a more complete sport. So I'm excited. Yeah.
What are you planning on taking at ASU? Like, you got the you got the SAT wrapped up in the clearinghouse and all that stuff, and then what are you going to take?
I'm thinking about international business and geography. I think those two will pair well. Striking some trade deals in the future between two foreign countries, I think sounds pretty ecstatic and exciting. But if that for some reason doesn't work out, I'm also kind of looking at an aviation path. So I think that could be cool.
That would be pretty cool. Lastly, what's your handicap, and have you played Papago Golf Course?
I have not played that golf course. I definitely need to get out on the golf course, maybe in the simulator here in Regina a bit this winter. But I don't know. I'm sitting maybe like at a +7 around there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not, some days it's a little lower, some days it's much higher, but that's how it goes.
Oh, man, you are going to be in such a good spot. And then that barn too, right? Like Mullet Arena. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's state of the art. I mean, an NHL team played there, so it's NHL standards for sure. So I'm excited about that.
Well, Braxton, I know you just got off the ice and things are busy with the Regina Pats, and you have all that. I'm sure you're going to be fielding questions and messages and all that today. But again, just congratulations, right? Like you put it out there. You had some, lack of a better term in the hockey industry, right? You had some massive reasons to do this, man. Like that's huge. And I'm very curious to see in this first year how many others, what ages go. Like we had Wayne on yesterday. He was talking, we're going to see, guys that are playing CIS now jump to NCAA. It's going to be wild. Thanks so much, Braxton. Looking forward to it. And the par threes are really long at Papago, so you got to be dialed on the par threes.
Par threes are my worst enemy, so we'll see about that. But thank you guys so much.
Right on.
Good luck.
Regina Pats, Braxton Whitehead, and future ASU Sun Devil. Man, Harry, like we both spent a lot of time down in the valley. Like, where is there a better place to probably go play some college hockey?
Oh, it's like that's just the dream. Like, that is amazing. You couldn't really ask for a better spot to go to. It's awesome. It's an awesome story because it's one of those things where it's a perfect example of how you can easily get caught up in the, well, this is how we've always done it, or that's just how it's done. And it's like, I think now this generation or his generation are way more questioning things like, well, how about we try it this way? Like, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it. And good for him, like pushing the issue and getting it changed and being a catalyst for that is massive. And that's something he'll be able to hang his hat on for years. Like that's amazing.
Drop. Yeah, like you said, it's always been done this way. We're always doing it.
Yeah.
No.
That's the worst argument for not doing something is because, well, we've never, two ways. Either we've never done it that way before, or that's how we've always done it. Those are the two worst excuses for not doing something.
We'll talk about it more as we go along here. We're talking more Riders. We're talking more Hardy Cup. We're talking more 35 years of Degrassi Junior High. It's y'all new SportsCage streaming at sportscage.com.
Wake up in the morning feeling shiny and leafy. I gotta go to school.
35 years ago. A lot of you out there remember that. So Colson did some digging, Harry. Lady by the name of Wendy Watson, Randy's auntie. She wrote that. She wrote them all. Colson, something like that. Yeah, Colson's not on the board today, but yeah, he's nodding. So Wendy Watson wrote that song, Degrassi. We are talking about things you've learned from Degrassi, life lessons. I talked about Wheels going to see his dad, Mike. Thanks to Scott, who chimed in, and he was going to see Mike and the Drifters. And then Curtis, you said you found out, Curtis Doug, he found out some info on Mike and the Drifters.
Yeah, it's I looked at the Degrassi Wikipedia fandom, and apparently Mike and the Drifters are a small-time professional band who play at bars and hotels, and they're named after Mike Nelson, Wheels' birth father.
Mike Nelson. You just can't write this stuff. This is so good.
Just the backstory for Mike and the Drifters. They get a backstory. That's amazing.
That's a T-shirt waiting to happen for sure. Look, we got somebody chiming in here from Trail, BC on the Capital Ford. Where's Port Hope? Is that in Ontario? Port Hope?
Gotta be.
That's where Wheels was going to watch or find his dad, Mike. Municipality in Ontario. That's what I figured. Speaking of 35 years ago, we were in high school. A lot of you were in high school watching Degrassi high school football, provincial finals. Our Friday night lights. We're going to talk about it tomorrow as well. It's for Regina Motor Products. You can get $20 off your tire changeover. Still no snow on the ground here, but there is going to be. So thanks to Regina Motor Products for sponsoring Friday Night Lights high school football. Now, Harry, get a load of some of these matchups. Right out. So 6A. That's your big boy. 6 schools. The big schools. Regina Campbell versus St. Joe's in Saskatoon. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff at Mosaic Stadium. Always a big deal. Remember that? Always a big deal for the Saskatoon kids to come down and play it. Back in our day, it was Taylor Field and Mosaic.
Yeah, huge.
Okay, so we got 1A, 6-a-side, Hafford versus Hanley. Both of those squads, they've rolled. Hafford scored 62 points against Lemberg last week. Hanley put up 48. It's going to be a shootout. If you can, if there's a book set up anywhere, maybe at the Hanley Shell Station, take the over in that game. Hammer the over. Okay, now here, Waka Clavette. Now, Southie Cupar, Highway 22 Storm. Don't worry, we see you. You got the bronze medal game against Rosetown. 1 o'clock kickoff. I can't remember if they told me it was in Southie or Cupar, but it's in one of those towns. It's right before the Rider game on Saturday, so it's the third place matchup. It's going to be good. Clavette, 72-36 over Rosetown, and I want to say that it was tied or something crazy at halftime.
No way.
And Clavette just went off. And so Clavette and Waka dumped Highway 22, 38. There were some bad turnovers there for the Storm. I know that. So that'll be an over too. If you're sprinkling, not allowed. Melfort and Tisdale, 9-a-side. Melfort, I thought Lumsden's a power, but Melfort's obviously a little bit more. 63-42 over Lumsden, and then Delisle and Tisdale, Harry, get this. 9-a-side football, semifinal. Tisdale won 38-37.
Oh.
Heartbreak hotel.
Melfort Tisdale, that's got to be a rivalry game right there. That's
down that highway.
What bad blood.
What highway is that? Like, I've taken that highway to Hudson Bay before. It's scary in the winter and dark. Moose all over. 30-minute drive. Highway 3. Star City's right in the middle. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. And then 12A, 5A, 12-a-side. So this is just the one step down the smaller high schools. Bishop James Mahoney, the Green Roof kids from the North End in Saskatoon. They're taking on not a very long drive as well. Prince Albert Carleton. Home of such alumnus of Mike Modano, Kelly Taylor, possibly Glen Scrimshaw. Don't quote me on that one. So there's your high school football rundown. We'll run it down again tomorrow. We'll have a little bit more insight because our man, what do I call him? Uncle Mo? Yeah, beauty. He sent in to hi@sportscage.com. He sent in a full rundown of what he thinks. If you're listening out there, Mo, maybe just give us a quick little rundown on what you think about each game this weekend. Get out there and support your high school football. The last weekend, beautiful weather-wise. You couldn't. Yeah. Like some of these games, guys are going to be saying, I remember when we played 8 feet of snow and minus 70. Yeah, no, it's going to be fantastic. That's an hour in the books. We got to take a break. When we come back next hour, we got Arash Madani. We have Ken Wiebe, and we have coach of the U of R Rams, Mark McConkey. It is the all-new Sports Cage on 620 CKRM. Another hour, as the big voice said, it's your home of talking sports in Saskatchewan. And today, because it's Throwback Thursday, it's your home of talking Degrassi Junior High. 35 years yesterday, it was released. Alan, you're looking at me with a disgusted look on your face. Did you ever watch Degrassi Junior High, Alan? No, never did. Too young. We're going to get to more of that. We're going to get to more hockey, football, Hardy Cup, West Final. All that. I'm pulling up the line here tonight. Like Harry, tonight, and I know Arash is going to join us here momentarily. Cincinnati-Baltimore Thursday night football game. Like, we've gotten some real piles of junk for Thursday nighters as per usual. Like they put a lot of duds on there, right? Like, what was it last week? The Jets in Houston. Like, if you weren't in Sprinkletown and that, like, why would you watch that football game if you're not a fan of either team? But Cincinnati-Baltimore tonight. And what do we got? See, Baltimore 6-point favorite. Yeah, they're at home. And then 52.5. I don't know. I don't
like the over.
You don't like the over?
No.
See, I don't. I'm gonna look up the weather. What the weather is like in Baltimore, Maryland, as they call it there. Let's bring him in. Let's talk to Arash, and maybe he'll give us some insight on what we should be doing.
The all-new Sports Cage and Coast to Coast with Arash Madani is brought to you by Smart Investing Solutions. Be smart with your money. Call Brian Golly at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533.
It's going to be 23 degrees with no wind right now in Baltimore.
Nice.
So this evening, not that bad. Arash, you were listening. Where should a guy go? Let's start with the NFL game first. Where should I go? NFL, should I play the over-under, or should I take Cincy to cover?
I like over rushing yards for both teams in this game. I'm going down the prop bet route this game. Look, I just think the Bengals have been a mess with T. Higgins in, T. Higgins out. Their offense has never really gotten going. And now suddenly Chase Brown, the Canadian kid from down the road in Kitchener, Ontario, he's been carrying the rock really well. I can't think of a non-quarterback who's been a bigger impact player than Derrick Henry has been for Baltimore. So I just think that because the Bengals passing game has been so helter-skelter, because you don't quite know what you're going to get from the Ravens, I just like both running backs to carry the load a lot tonight.
So you would hammer Chase Brown over 56.5 and Derrick Henry over 91.5.
Ooh.
That's a
big
tough
number.
That's a tough line. You might stay away, back away, not today, disco lay day. Let's go CFL. So we got allegedly the 4 best teams in the league still standing here. Montreal, Toronto. And I know you didn't give predictions when you joined the fellas on Tuesday. How do you see this one going down? Personally, for some reason, I just think because of the East and how things are going the last few years in the East, I'm going to take the underdog or the slight underdog here in Toronto.
I understand why. If you look at it, you say to yourself, all right, the Argonauts have the better quarterback, Kelly over Fajardo. The Argonauts probably have the better running game with Kadeem Carey over Walter Fletcher. They Now, if Coxie can go, they probably have the better receiving core. And again, we're talking mainly on offense. Look, I think when it comes to the Argos, let's start on the defensive side of the ball, because Cody Fajardo, out of nowhere, really not only got the Alouettes the Grey Cup, but won it last year. I've talked to a few people around the league this week, and if there is one unanimous thought in both of these games, it's that the Argos have to keep Fajardo in the pocket. They cannot allow the pocket to break down for Cody to start running, because then that's where he can really excel a little bit. When the coverage doesn't break down, Fajardo's, I'm sorry, he's just not a weapon. So Montreal's not a team that's built to have long, sustained drives. So that from an Argo defensive perspective is it. The other, I think, guys, and it's really interesting, how do you manage Chad Kelly emotionally? Like, remember all the turnovers last year, the pick six in the East Final right away to Marc-Antoine Dequoy. The sense, not that I got, but like how they may want to approach this is a little walk before you run. Don't have him come out immediately, start slinging it. Try and get him into some kind of rhythm. Try and get him a little more confidence before they start stretching the field and going about it that way, which actually works because they've had a ton of success running the football with Kadeem Carey. And when you think about that Alouette defense, Noel Thorpe, their defensive coordinator, there are voided areas when there's secondary pressure, and Noel likes to bring the heat. So I just think that with all the exotic looks that Montreal likes to bring, I think there are going to be openings and opportunities for Chad Kelly there. Just a matter of whether or not they can execute them.
So if Fajardo can get Montreal to the championship game again, would that be enough for you to give him a little bit more credibility as a pocket passer if he doesn't do it with his legs? Like, what's it going to take for you to anoint him as a legitimate pocket passer?
Yeah, I guess he's just got to do it. Like, even last year, when you think about it, what was a second and a cab ride on that game-winning drive? It was Fajardo running for it, and then that set up the deep pass to Cole Speaker. Look, and it's not just me. That's the thing about this, is that, like, you just talk to different coaches, you talk to people around the league, and that's what they say about Cody. Like, I think part of what makes Chad Kelly a weapon is because he's mobile, because he can be a runner. He won't likely see the windows for the explosives like he did against Ottawa, against Montreal. So I think the way Kelly's going to run the football is going to matter here. If Fajardo does it, if he's sticks in there and is able to deliver from the pocket and get them to the Grey Cup, then I think that it's another major kind of statement that he's making in his career.
Let's shift west here. What do you think the coaching staff in Saskatchewan is game planning? What are they going through this week? Corey Mason, his crew, to kind of slow down and inevitably to beat Winnipeg.
So let's start on the Mace slowdown front. Look, to beat Winnipeg, it's about stopping Brady Oliveira in the run in the pass game with your box players. Box players being your defensive linemen and linebackers. So can the front seven take care of Oliveira, whether he's carrying the football or catching it out of the backfield? Because if they overcommit, if the Riders overcommit secondary players, then Caleros is going to find Kenny Lawler. He's going to find Nick Dembski. So that to me is a big part of this. If and I know this sounds like 1990s football, but if Sask stops the run, huge advantage for the Riders. The Riders on the flip side, like we talked about this last week, Barney, remember we talked about how important AJ Ouellette is going to have to be? He's going to have to be the same this week because Winnipeg shows a lot of three-man fronts. And the reason they do that is because the Bombers have had a lot of success dropping 9 guys and taking away quick access throws, and that's what Trevor Harris likes to do. So what Winnipeg does when they drop guys back is, the football language is, they buzz their linebackers for intermediate routes, and they're able to get pressure with 3. So if the Sask offensive line holds up, if the Sask running game takes care of things and they're not in second and long, I think that's going to be a big time advantage for Harris and the Riders.
So they rushed 3. So then the immediate game plan, and again, I don't get paid to coach, is draw plays. Anything short dump off, right? Because you make it look, you get those linebackers to back up just a smidge, and then you go short. I like that. I like that analysis. Like I'm curious to watch that now, and how they game plan around it.
The one thing to keep in mind, though, is that those bomber linebackers, they're pretty athletic. So those short and intermediate routes, like Trevor Harris likes those quick access throws. That's what they call it. So, look, the weather's supposed to be decent in Winnipeg. It's not supposed to be icy or snowy. I think like this is one of those things where it's like, who's going to get to the ball first? The linebacker.
I don't trust anything weather-wise in Winnipeg or going to Winnipeg ever. Seems like every time I go there's some sort of weird ice storm that pops up, and everything's in the ditch. Collaros, how much do they get to him early? And again, I have talked about it. Nothing dirty, but like, do you think they get into his face early, maybe make him uncomfortable back there?
So I know the thought process is, okay, hit him and rattle him. That's not going to rattle Zach Collaros. Here's what's going to rattle Zach Collaros is disguising and trying to make him see something that he's not. Which, when you think about last year's Grey Cup, that's what Noel Thorpe and the Alouettes did. And there was a moment in the second half where Zach thought he had Kenny Lawler wide open, and then he didn't. And by the time he realized it, the ball was already out of his hands. He got picked off in the end zone. He kind of crumpled over, grabbed his kneecaps, and he was rattled the rest of the way. Look, Zach has not had good Novembers in a long time. Like, you think about 2021 when they won the Grey Cup. He didn't really necessarily have a good championship game. He's been poor in West Finals the last couple of years, bad in Grey Cups the last 2 years. The way you can do that is more with your linebackers and defensive backs breaking things up and really kind of showing looks that aren't necessarily going to be there when the ball's in the air. And if there's somebody who knows how to do it, it's Corey Mace, because they did it in 2022 in the Grey Cup when he was the defensive coordinator of the Argos.
Calgary going to get the Grey Cup in 2026? All signs are pointing to that?
Yeah, they're going to do some announcement. I think it's tomorrow. Here's the thing, guys. If you go back in time, Randy Ambrosie's first year as commissioner, his first Grey Cup in 2017, he talked about Calgary getting a new stadium as a priority. And then it just kind of all went quiet at McMahon Stadium, and that place has just rotted for 9 years, and now they're going to get another Grey Cup there. I get it. You have to move it around, but we're at the point now where subpar facilities are getting championship games. And I think the way you can put the pressure on a city, a province, a county, all that kind of stuff is by not putting a Grey Cup there. But they're going to go there in 2026.
Yeah, they're not going to put the World Juniors in Verdun, right? Like, just because you got to put it in a facility that can host it. And everybody, even the people from Calgary, I've never been to a football game at McMahon Stadium, but people from Calgary that we've had on the show call it a hole. So, yeah, I don't know, it's a fun city to probably hang out in and all that, but...
Arash, any news on the Edmonton front office situation? Are they any closer to a resolution there?
I keep being told that interviews are underway for the GM job. Remember, Geroy Simons, the interim GM of the Elks? I'm told that their new president, Chris Morris, and their alternate governor, the former president, Rick Lalashire, they're the ones kind of who are doing the interviews. I'm trying to get some names of some people. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Ryan Rigmaiden, who used to be the assistant GM of the BC Lions, is in the mix. I'd expect that Ted Gavaya, the assistant GM, the Blue Bombers, is in the mix. I'd expect that Geroy Simons in the mix. So those are among, and Ed Hervey, of course, Ed Hervey. I would think they're going to interview 5-6 people, and then maybe in the next week or two, narrow that down to 2 or 3 for final interviews. And I would suspect that, a few days around Grey Cup, they're going to come to some kind of decision there.
Is there a timeline? Like,
yeah.
Is it urgent?
Yeah.
Is it urgent?
Yeah. Yes and no. It's urgent because you have a new owner. It's urgent because the team's been in turmoil for a while. It's urgent because there's a lot of work to do. But it's not that urgent because at the same time, other than cleaning out what you have in-house and kind of, coaching staff, direction, all that kind of stuff, it's not like from a player standpoint, you can make too many moves until the new year. But whoever the GM is, the big thing they got to do is hire a head coach. And I think Jarius Jackson's going to get an interview, but I think they're going to do, a wide casting net of who they may want. So I wouldn't say urgent, but they're definitely on the clock. Put it that way.
Let's get down to brass tacks here. What a lot of people are waiting to hear. What was your favorite Degrassi episode? 35 years of Degrassi Junior High. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that today, and I couldn't remember the actual episode, but I do remember that one of the characters was throwing hockey cards up at the window to try and get someone's attention. Then he got to a Gretzky, and he's like, yeah, I'm not throwing Gretzky. So that was fun. Chris Woodward, who once upon a time was a Blue Jays infielder, he once had a cameo on Degrassi. And then he ended up being the Dodgers third base coach and the Texas Rangers manager up until a couple years ago. I interviewed Woodward, and I said, what was the coolest part? He said, I was on set with Drake, and like everyone just called him Aubrey, in those days. So I remember that too when Woodward made his cameo on Degrassi.
So many lessons, so many life lessons we learned from Degrassi. A lot of fun. All right. Well, it's where are you? So where are you this weekend? Are you just at home? Or are you traveling around anywhere?
I'm at home, and then I'll head to Vancouver on Sunday, Monday. I was gonna come up there for the West Final if you guys were hosting, but suddenly a windstorm in Montreal changed all those plans.
Weird. Truman Show style. Yeah. Oh, there's the clip. Curtis, quick on the ball.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's
insane.
Weird. I don't like. You can't even do that in a video game.
No.
You know what's wild too, guys? It's been so nice here. It's been like 20, 21 degrees like since that day. For 5 minutes,
Yeah.
Look at this.
Okay. Yeah. Salt in the wound. Now, you know what, though? We're going to go to Winnipeg and we're going to win the West Final. So, okay. Arash, we'll catch up. Monday's a holiday, so we'll catch up next week at some point. Watch some Degrassi over the next week. Nostalgia.
I don't think I'll do that. I think I'll watch football. See you, boys.
Welcome back to the all-new Sports Cage. If you're watching that stream at sportscage.com, thank you very much. And YouTube, hammer the subscribe button. Curtis keeps track on all the subscribers. He's going to award somebody a prize at some point. So, yeah, subscribe to that. Rams Huskies right here. Geez, I keep saying right here. It is kind of right here. It's on CKRM2 on the Deuce. You just got to go to the website and find CKRM2, click it, and then you'll have the smooth sounds of Brendan McGuire and Derek Bidwell Saturday, 12:45 pregame show, 1 o'clock kickoff, CKRM.com. Geez, we said... I think the last week he said, well, we'll talk to you next Thursday. And here we are. We're talking to the head coach of the View of our Rams again, Mark McConkey. You called it. I don't know how aggressive we want to be for next week, Mark, and maybe having a chat on Thursday. But congratulations, man. Like that, you watch that last 4 minutes of that game. I know I'm listening to it at Harvard 620 Lounge, getting ready for the Rider game, and the block punt first off, and then let's go there. The defense shuts them down inside the 10 or inside the 5 or whatever. Like the excitement. What are you feeling at that moment watching your defense do that at such a crucial point of the year?
Yeah, it was honestly incredible. They got the ball at the 3-yard line, and 3 straight plays they were able to shut him out. And again, they've been playing that like that all year. Again, they've got a little bit of credit, but you don't get all of it when you have a 3-5 record or 2-5 at the time. And yeah, Coach Gray, our D coordinator, did a nice job, and the players really buying into him and his system. And yeah, I was pretty excited. It was pretty nerve wracking, but when you're in the moment, you don't really think about it. You're just kind of just coaching and staying focused and dialed in. And looking back after the game, that was pretty wild.
On something like that, on the 3-yard line, stopping him 3 times. Now, I want you to give this to me honestly. How much of that is coaching and how much of that is just the players? Is it 50-50, 60-40? Because there's got to be some sort of game planning from the sideline to know kind of what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I'd say 50-50 just to give everyone equal credit. But the players knew. They were amped up. They knew what it meant. And honestly, our kicker made a huge tackle. Like, he could have given up on the play. They could have just scored. But with our defense, like we showed that play in film, it's like with the guys we have out there right now, like if you give them the ball in the 1, they still might not get in. So, yeah, it's 50-50. The players are ready to play, but they've been playing well all year.
At what point in that drive, Noah Pelche just like slinging it like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, looking cool. The play for me, obviously the scoring play is great, the 3rd and 12. That 3rd and 4, where that out pattern, to throw it where he did, for that receiver to get the proper depth. Kudos to the ref, too, for not being an absolute homer. I don't know where he was from. He spots the ball. That's a tough, as anyone that's ever thrown a ball into coverage, that's tough to do, especially under that pressure.
100%. There was a lot of big plays on that drive, but that was one of them. And the receiver is actually a true freshman, 18-year-old out of BC. So that's a pretty big moment for him. And he may have cut his route off 1 yard short, but he made it closer than it needed to be. But I'm glad the ref, they gave us the spot on that one. But they made up for it on the holding and the other calls later on that drive.
Mark, how much does the preparation change having to come to, like, say, Saskatchewan rather than like a UFC or a Manitoba? Like, where do you let the guys kind of have their intensity level? Like, obviously it's a big provincial game and it's on such a huge stage. So what's the message that you give to them coming to this game?
Yeah, I mean, every time we play UVS, it's a big one, right? It's the big rivalry. It's a lot of respect between the two programs, but there's that hatred between them. Obviously, that's what rivalries are based off of, and honestly, it just happens to be a Hardy Cup game. And but at the end of the day, it's a little bit different than a season game. Like, it doesn't matter if we were going to BC or going to Sask. We got to focus on us, right? And that's what we've been doing on this 2-game win streak, and looking to make it 3 is just doesn't matter who we're playing. It's going to be louder there than it would have been at BC. But a lot more fans from Regina are coming up too, so we're going to have a lot more fans there too. So it's going to be a great game, great atmosphere, and hopefully we got a lot more Huskies, Rams, Hardy Cup finals coming up in the future years.
I know you don't want to give anything away game plan wise or injuries and who's in and who's out, but what do you got to do against this team, Sask? You know, you played them tough. What do you have to do up there Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be close. We beat them once, they beat us once by a tight margin, and both games were almost equal, like first downs, time of possession, yardage. They had the edge in the win, and when we won, we had the edge. So it's just going to come down to probably 5 or 6 plays, and it's going to be I tell our guys, a 10-round boxing match. Like, it's going to be punches thrown back and forth, and then if you get a chance to get an uppercut, whatever that looks like, a pick, a touchdown, a blocked field goal, we got to jump on it and pounce on it. So it's going to be probably a 1-score game, and it's going to be pretty evenly matched, and they got a high-flying offense, but we got one of the best defenses in the country. So it's going to be a fun matchup for us.
A lot of alumni, sending obviously words of encouragement. A lot of guys coming out of the woodwork and just kind of rooting you guys on.
Yeah, it's been tremendous. Lots of people are jumping on the Rams bandwagon. I don't know where they were when we were losing 5 straight, but that's okay. No, I'm just joking. But lots of encouragement. I mean, big playoff win. Like, the last time we won a playoff game was 2012. That was when I was actually a player, and Mark Mueller was our quarterback, and that's a long time ago. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come in future years. But right now we're focused on winning that Hardy, which has been even longer. We've only ever won 1, and that was in 2000. Similar story too.
Harry and I were talking, right? Both Saskatoon guys. I've been here now for almost 20 years, so I'm a Regina guy. I'm a Ram guy now. there's that little bit of David Goliath thing, right? The smaller school. Frank McChrystal talked about it yesterday. The big U of S school. In the speech, do you maybe touch on that a bit? Like that, hey, no one expects us to be here. We're not supposed to be here, but hey, we're here.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the mantra of the Rams, right? We're the smallest school in Canada West. We're the little brother compared to the big UBCs, U of A's, Calgary, and that's just who we are. And we're just going to outwork everyone. We're going to outprepare, outwork, and continue to buy into our process, and good things will happen. And that's what the guys have been doing.
How excited is the boy?
Very excited. He's coming up. Yeah, he's excited. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to say let's hope we do this again next week. What a ride, especially into next year and what we're hosting here and just everything, not to look too far ahead. But congratulations to you and your staff again, Mark, and best of luck. Everyone's going to be behind you here in Regina. And again, I'll say it, go get it.
I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll put in my calendar next Thursday afternoon. Let's do this again.
Awesome. Head coach of the U of R Rams, Mark McConkey, joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Greek style pizza. It's become world famous around the world. You just can't get enough of it. Western Pizza. Yeah, Harry, right? Like the small school. And they're there.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. You always love stories like that. I mean, it's not like the Huskies are the machine. It's not like, but they're a bigger school, and they're kind of, like you said, the little brother. Like that definitely does translate. And then you just add in the provincial rivalry, and it's got all the pieces and all the components for a great game.
And the weather, 9 degrees and beautiful.
Yeah, forget about it.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. It's all the all-new Sports Cage, streaming at sportscage.com. Scouring the Capital Ford Lincoln text line, both regular text and then on YouTube. People chiming in, again, about QPAR, but Degrassi as well. Thanks to everyone who's on board. 35 years of Degrassi junior high. Harry and I have talked about it. So Bonnie messaged in. She brought up an episode that I forgot about. Again, we learned so much from Degrassi junior high. Do you remember the one, it's called Bad Blood Part 2? It was Dwayne becomes increasingly withdrawn as he awaits the results of his HIV test. I forgot about that. If you're in high, like grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, that hit home. Like that was a gut punch, and your stomach was. It's like kind of watching that movie Kids, right? Like every kid should watch the movie Kids. Yeah, but that was, and there was one that was banned. I don't want to get into that one, but do you remember that one?
Yep, I totally do. Yeah, because I remember when he finds out that he has it, and it's kind of because he's bullying Joey. That was the big arc, is that he was a big bully, and he was always giving Joey a hard time, and then Joey finds out that he has it, and he keeps his secret, and then they kind of form this bond, from what I remember. It's funny though, because I deliberately didn't bring up that one just because it's like it's heavy, right? But they did a lot of heavy stuff. Like there's the one where Claude commits suicide, and Snake finds him. Yep. And like they covered a lot of, it was like, when I was thinking about it the other day, it was like Canadian Beverly Hills 90210, because Beverly Hills 90210 covered a lot of heavy issues too. They covered like sexual assault and suicide and things like that, and abuse, and but that Degrassi was that before there was Beverly Hills, and Degrassi didn't shy away from those issues, and they covered a lot of them.
There's the abortion one, which was pulled as well. Another one that sticks was when Spike finds out she's pregnant, and like you're in high school, and you learn about all that in high school. At least you did back when we went to high school, and then it hit home
for sure. And then Shane overdosing and then falling off the bridge, and then he's kind of he's not paralyzed, but he has like long-term effects from his drug use. So it's like, it's definitely a scare tactic for the anti-drug movement. Yeah, it's, they hit home.
taught us so much. We don't think about it, but it did, except for you guys over here. We weren't even born yet. Degrassi Junior High, 35 years ago, 1989 it came out. It was a huge year, just like it was a huge year for the Riders. If you're just joining us, 5 Riders named to the 2024 All CFL team. Logan Ferlin, of course, Micah Johnson, CJ Rivas, Roland Milligan Jr., and then the one that I love, who was kind of a castaway from the BC Lions, Marcus Sales. So we had clips from those guys earlier. You can go back and listen to the show in podcast form if you want to catch that. Let's go out on the Western Pizza guest hotline. The pizza is known worldwide, fellas. You know that people come in, they like bring it on the airplane. They half bake it. Spiro and any Western Pizza, they can half bake it, and then you take it on the plane and you take it wherever you're going. And then you can have the thick goodness. A guy that knows about Western Pizza and Regina Pizza because he's from here, former U of R Cougar, Ken Wiebe. You can follow him at Wiebe's World on Twitter. Kenny, when's the last time you had a slice of Western Pizza?
A couple years ago when I was down for the Grey Cup, I believe Mac and I had it ordered on a Saturday night. Yeah, it was good. It was the day before the Grey Cup, yes. Mighty Argos victory over the Bombers. Yes, that was 2 years ago. So 2022. So it's been a little too long. Probably due for a return visit. And you guys know I like to attack the pizza pie when I'm in town for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah, we talked that we were going to get together in golf and have pizza and pints this summer. That never happened. You're at the hockey. Yeah, you're at the hockey rink right now, getting set up for the Avs tonight. Avs. Let's talk about they're a banged up bunch, but Winnipeg, talk about a early season wagon here.
Yeah, it's been an impressive start for sure. I don't think, even in our market, we kind of had them as a playoff team, but I don't think anyone anticipates going out of the gate at the 12-1 start that they have. But a lot of sustainable parts. They've carried over the strong commitment to team defense that was well in place under the Rick Bowness era. Obviously, when you start with the best goalie in the NHL, that's certainly a good starting point. But the Jets haven't really leaned on him too much, guys, and that's probably been a key to their early success here. And the depth has been there from starting last year especially, but their high-end guys have been excellent. Josh Morrissey doing an excellent job out of the gate on the back end, and Kyle Connor kind of leading the way offensively up front. But it's his ability to produce while also doing a nice job on the backtracking and adding that defensive component to his game that has helped them. But they've had 4 lines strong. Their defense core has held up nicely, led by Morrissey and Neil Pionk. And as mentioned, the goaltending has been fantastic, and getting 3 wins out of their backup and Eric Comrie and his return has been important for them too. As they try to stabilize themselves under Scott O'Neill, who had been an associate coach for 2 years, but getting his first crack in the NHL since that 2012 season.
12-1, solid record. If there was a surprise for you, a guy that's watching that team day in and day out, what would that be?
Hard to call it a surprise, but I guess too, for the folks who don't watch the Jets often, guys, the Adam Lowry line, known as the checking line, has also outscored its opponents 10-1 at 5-on-5 this year. So,
wow.
When you're going out against the McKinnons and the McDavids on a regular basis, if you're around even, that's a good good job on the defending part. But the beauty of that line with Mason Appleton and Nino Niederreiter is that they're forcing those skilled and offensive players to check. And for the most part, guys, skilled guys and scorers don't love to check. They want to play in the happy zone, right? So I wouldn't call it a surprise, but that line has really been doing an excellent job. And again, too, a lot of question marks about how the second pairing would hold up. Neil Pionk in a contract year, and Dylan Sandberg getting an elevation from the third pairing to the second. He was up over 5 minutes a night, and guys, he's been excellent, to the point where he's kind of one of those under the radar stay at home guys, but I would suggest that he could force himself into the discussion for a 6, 7, 8 job on that Team USA blue line, just given the style that he plays and his ability to kill penalties. So those guys have been excellent. And the other question too that we talked about in the summertime, Vladislav Nemestikov, how would he handle the second line center role? And he's doing a fantastic job there. So I would say that those were some of the surprises, but or some of the maybe under the radar guys that have been shining in elevated roles this year.
When you're 12-1, I know it's tough to say we still need things, but what do they need, or where could they still have some needs that need to be met?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that their penalty kill came out of the gate really strong. Out of Dean Chenoweth coming in to run the defense and run the penalty kill, they were hovering around fourth overall. I think 7 or 8 games in, they've sort of gone more to the middle of the pack. But came up with a 4-for-4 effort the other day against the Utah Hockey Club. So I mean, that's an area they're obviously they've moved from the bottom third into the middle, but they'd like to move into that top third. And I mean, the power play has been just dynamite under Tavis Payne, guys. I mean, running at a Oilers-esque level of 44.4% to lead the league. So those have been good things. Again, I said their depth has been really good, and their fourth line, I would say, has been playing well, but they haven't had an even strength goal from the fourth line since the opener when Rasmus Kapari ended his long drought that dated back to the season previous when he was with LA. So I would say they're always probably looking to, if we're looking ahead to the calendar, I mean, I would think that they're still going to be looking at upgrading the defense core, even though they've had a nice job as a collective. But if this team wants to win 16 playoff games, guys, I would say that they'd be looking for the next Chris Tanev, I guess. I mean, every team is looking for that, but I would say the Jets would probably be looking at somebody either to play in the third pairing or to potentially, force themselves into the second pairing and then sort of distribute your way from there.
Looking ahead, and everybody's starting to talk about it now, do we see 2 Winnipeg Jets on Team Canada for the Four Nation Cup?
Yeah, you know what? I think Josh Morrissey, I would put him in the lock category, guys. I mean, he literally only Cale Makar has scored more, and I know some of the, we're being bombarded with the projections, and we'll all be contributing to those projections. But the lists that I see that don't have Josh Morrissey on them, that's wake up territory for me, guys. I mean, this guy's been a top 10 Norris candidate the last 2 years, and he's probably playing his best hockey. And it's not that he's just a over a point a game player. He also plays against the other team's best players. He's really elevated his defensive game. He was a guy who was a Western League high point producer, came in, became a shutdown guy with Jacob Trouba. Now he's elevated back to being a bona fide number 1 defenseman. But yeah, I think that Josh could have some company. I mean, Mark Scheifele's had a fantastic start. And again, it's not just the points, being back to being an over a point a game player. He's come through in critical moments for the Jets, time in and time out here, overtime markers, extra attacker goals. And he's really committed both ways as well. Is what he's going to have to be if he wants to be on that team, right? There's a ton of guys on the periphery, the 10th to 14th forwards who have a high skill set, but you got to be able to deliver something else as well. But Mark is highly motivated, and I've said this for a long time, guys. The connection with Dale Howardchuk, with him being his head coach. I think for Mark, even though he played for Team North America at the World Cup, for him to be around guys like Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid on a best on best for Team Canada, I think that would be a massive deal, much like it was for Dale Howardchuk at the Canada Cup here. I do think that Mark is trending towards that, but I mean, again, 3 more weeks, and when you have that level of competition for those spots, he's going to need to continue to play at an elevated level for the next 3 weeks. But I would say right now, I would have him joining Josh Morrissey on that team. But again, having said that, there is a stiff competition, and we know that. I can tell you guys that there's been a lot of Team Canada personnel in the building to watch the Jets, even on nights. Julian Breezeball was here with his own team, but he's seen him a couple of times recently. Don Sweeney has been in to see him multiple times, and obviously Doug Armstrong saw both players at the game in St. Louis there last month as well.
You watch a lot of hockey. Your eyeballs are on it. Obviously the Jets, but you watch the other guys. Quickly, last question on this is, if there was a dark horse guy around the league that might make it for Team Canada, like we talked to Eric Francis, he says, Uyghur could be there. Who would be your dark horse guy?
Yeah, I like McKenzie on the back end. I mean, I'm a big fan of, the Carter Verhaeghe, Brandon Hagel type of guys. I know we often talk about the tradition dating back to Rob Zamner, Jeff Friesen, these kind of guys on the not unknowns, especially Jeff Friesen in that market, guys, but guys that are not necessarily, you're not looking at necessarily the 13th most skilled forwards. Hagel's a really excellent two-way player, and again, Breezeball is going to have some input there. I mean, Anthony Cirelli would be if you're looking for a two-way guy. I would even say, too, it's unlikely for the Jets to have 3, but I mean, we mentioned Adam Lowry off the top. He'd be a guy that plays a different role than many of those other guys do with his ability to win faceoffs and kill penalties. But yeah, I mean, those are 2 kind of guys that I would have. But I think that Bedard's not a lock, but I do think that he'll be a great candidate for the 13th forward. I think that it would be important again, and this is an important tournament, guys, and we're all fired up for it. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the real big tournament will be happening when these NHLers are back at the Olympics. So there's no way in my mind that I don't see Bedard there in 4 years. So to get him that initial push, even if he doesn't play a lot, but we all know about Team Canada too. I mean, Jonathan Toews started the 2010 Olympics as the 13th forward, ended up being one of their most valuable players. So I would think that Bedard, again, I'm not sure if some people have him as a lock or not, but I think he's on the team as well. So, but those would be a few of the guys, but it's all, it's all choice, right? A personal preference here. And I'd love to be in those meetings. And I mean, I asked Doug Armstrong a couple of things, how big the net was or how big a net they were casting. And he didn't want to get into it, knowing that the market that I was asking from, he didn't want to have the debate will be happening on December 1st. He didn't want to have the debate starting at the end of October. So it's just going to be a fabulous tournament, and can't wait to see it. And lots of interesting decisions on the horizon at all 3 positions. I mean, who's going to be the goalie? I mean, that's the biggest question. I mean, I ask scouts who roll through all the time, and it's not going to be Brodeur or Waugh or Belfour from what we can gather, but it'll be interesting there as well. So it could be some late additions on that front too.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Rob Zamner, because we're talking about that yesterday. It's like it's not the all-star team, and then Ken and then Eric Francis and I got into Stratomatic hockey, and that just went off the rails. Okay, so we got a minute and a half left. Got to ask you, since you're there,
sure.
Predictions Saturday, Bombers and Riders.
Last second field goal is my prediction. It's going to be a fantastic game. We know we got 2 veteran quarterbacks who know how to win, know how to run the offense when it's cold in November, even though it's going to be a nice kind of balmy day. But I mean, sun will be down by 6:00. So I think both teams have excellent running games. I mean, obviously the Bombers are familiar with Ouellette from his time in Toronto. He certainly has given them problems in the past. Brady Oliveira, when the Bombers are rolling, Brady's active in the screen game. He's active in the run game. Both offensive lines, I would say, are under pressure because you got to win the battle in the trenches, right? And then you got two great defenses as well. I mean, a lot of people think the Riders have the best defense in the league, and when you're the Bombers trying to get to your 5th in a row, you'd also try to make that claim or want to make that claim also. But who's gonna win the turnover battle? And again, special teams. Both teams have solid kickers. Sergio Castillo was actually down at the rink this morning. Bombers had the day off, so I think Nick Dembski for me is my X factor in the game. And I think I'm not going to predict a bold Bomber victory, but I think it's a field goal game, and whoever has the ball last is going to win the game, fellas.
What was Castillo doing at the rink? Working on his crossovers, or?
He is a photographer on the side, so I think the Bombers had a lot of workouts in, and he was just checking out the morning skate. So nice. He sounded ready. No secrets, but he sounded like the team is ready to roll. Yeah. But we also know the Riders will be ready to roll, and it's going to be a fantastic night. I know it's a sellout crowd. I know there'll be some green and. Might be a few watermelons in the crowd, I'm guessing, and I just hope it's a fantastic tilt for both teams. And may the best team be representing the West in Vancouver 1 week from Sunday or from Saturday or Sunday.
Right
sorry.
On. All right, Ken. Have a good one tonight. We'll catch up again maybe next week, right? We'll see how this all shakes down on Wednesday. Appreciate it as always, my man.
Take care, guys, and enjoy the tilt on Saturday as well. Should be a beauty.
An hour left in the books of this program. Barney Shynkaruk, Chris Harris, CNC Production Company, and Alan Lee, the sheriff, is in. It's a full. We're one guy short of a line for hockey. 4 of us here today. So much to get. We got Ray Morrison coming up, talking Hardy Cup, Huskies, Rams. Saturday in Saskatoon. That game can be heard on the Deuce, CKRM2 pregame show at 12:45, play-by-play at 1 p.m. with Brennan McGuire and Derek Bedwell. It's going to be a good one. Also, I want to get the clutch performer out of the way right now. Clutch performer for Nick Service in Emerald Park, your local Massey Ferguson, Challenger, Rogator, Gleaner, and Fent dealer. You can call 781-1077 and talk to the fine folks at Nick Service in Emerald Park. Last night, if you're not watching any of this U18 AAA hockey in Regina, also formerly known as midget AAA hockey, you're missing out. Regina Pat Canadians have Maddox Schultz on their team, but our clutch performer is from the Yorkton Kinsman Maulers. Reed Schweitzer in goal last night in a losing cause, 2-1. Pat Canadians dump Yorkton, but Reed stopped 39 of 41 shots against the high-powered Pat Canadians. So Reed Schweitzer from the Yorkton Kinsman Maulers is our clutch performer for Nick Service in Emerald Park. We've been talking football. We've been talking Degrassi Junior High, 35 years of Degrassi Junior High. I am not sure if this, because when Degrassi came out, this guy was winning Grey Cups. Let's go talk to Glen Suitor.
The all-new Sports Cage with CFL and Saskatchewan Rough Rider legend Glen Suitor is brought to you by Quality Tire. With 9 locations across Saskatchewan, visit qualitytire.ca.
On your days off, Glenn, you, Tommy Burgess, Ray Elgard, ever go sit behind Tube TV and watch any Degrassi Junior High back in '89?
I got a couple things. First of all, no, I haven't seen 1 minute of that show. So I do know the name, though, and I remember it. I remember it being on. I was listening in as you guys were talking about it, and I thought, maybe I should have watched that show. It might have helped me. But no, I didn't watch any. And the other thing I got to bring up is that if we were a hockey line, okay, here's what you're going to get out of your right winger, and if that's me, you're going to get, I'll stand in front of their opposing goalie and take a beating in there, so to set up the screen, so you guys can buzz around, okay, and I'll be back checking my butt off, okay. So that is what you'll get. Now, if you look to me and say, hey, we need a goal, I got bad news for you.
Well, I don't know if Curtis Colson and Alec Curtis could still be playing midget hockey, I think. But I don't know on this side what we'd have for our team. But Chris knows, because we played a lot of hockey together, what you described, stand in front of the net guy and back check guy, that's good, because those are two guys I'm not. So if we have that covered with you, we're fine. The good thing about Harry, he's a workhorse like that too, but he could also play goal. So we got a guy that can play any position on the ice, literally, and also throw him in goal. It's good. Game, Glenn, Saturday. Are you calling this one?
I am, yes. I can't wait. Guys, I love this matchup. I've been thinking back to playoff matchups, and I thought when Nathan Rourke was red hot and he went into Winnipeg, that was one I was pretty excited about. But I can't think of two teams in recent memory that are as well matched as these two teams. I mean, they're two quarterbacks alone, like top guys in the top of their game. Trevor Harris, who has broken a ton of records in playoff football. He holds a ton of records: completion percentage, attempts in a game, most touchdown passes in a game. The unwavering sort of just not neutral, that's the wrong way to say it, but just a nice demeanor where he's not too high, not too low. It resonates through the whole team. And Zach's the same way. So you got two veteran star quarterbacks that can light it up, two tailbacks in AJ Ouellette and in Brady Oliveira that have very similar styles. And I just got off the phone about 20 minutes ago with a mentor of both of those guys in Andrew Harris. And Andrew Harris, of course, was in Winnipeg when he's known Brady Oliveira since he was 13 years old and made the transition to running back. And AJ Ouellette, he said he went into Toronto with AJ Ouellette there, and it could have been very contentious, but they ended up becoming really good friends right away. And both AJ and Brady are so similar in styles, and both have been mentored by Andrew Harris, he's one of the best to ever play. So you just take the quarterbacks, the tailbacks, the defenses, the coaching staffs, this is a playoff matchup like I can't remember in a long time.
So Winnipeg wins the season series. So what do the Riders have to take from the one win and forget from the two losses in order to be successful?
Well, yeah, I asked Coach that today as well. And, he said, obviously, all of those games came down. They were all close, all within striking range of either team winning. And when you look at the 3 or 4 plays that were the difference, you start to try to figure out how those plays could be correctable. And that's a great example of, if you're watching the video stream right now, you're seeing a great example of a mistake that never happens or happens very rarely. And, those type of mistakes, Mario Alford misplays a kick and the Bombers score. And, that momentum carried them in a big, big way. So you take away a couple of those plays. Now, how do you can't control kind of when they're happening. So it's twofold. One is you have to be prepared to bounce back from adversity, back from a play like that goes against you, but also be ready to try and go and make that first one, make them chase it rather than have you chase it. But again, physicality at the line, you're going to hear all about that. You're going to hear about the running game all week. It's going to be, I think either team, I don't know, what's the odds right now, guys? Do you know the odds? Because
what do you want to know? What do you want to know? I got you covered, buddy. What do you need?
It's a pick 'em, isn't it?
No. Winnipeg's a 3.5-point favorite. If you want to bet the line,
the only reason I would suggest that, home field. That's the only reason I would suggest.
100%.
Yeah.
Over unders 48. I think we're going to see a lot of points scored. But it's playoffs. Who knows? If there's, I don't know if we want to say a guy or maybe a unit. If there's one X factor in this one, Glenn, what is it?
Well, based on the games this year against the two teams playing against each other, the one bit of a head scratcher I had was when Saskatchewan had trouble covering down on Brady Oliveira. And it wasn't necessarily stopping the run. I think that'll be key, and you'll hear a lot of that from both teams, actually. But when they did stop the run, Winnipeg went to the swing passes, the little screens, the hitch passes, the things that got Brady Oliveira, on those under routes and out into space. And it wasn't like he was ripping off 50-yard plays, but he was getting first downs and keeping Zach Collaros and the offense on the field. Time of possession is going to be big. So to answer your question, I would say sort of the coaching strategy. I don't know what it'll be from Corey Mace, but what is the coaching strategy to try and make sure you cover Brady out of the backfield after you stop the run on first down?
So we're in Western Canada in November, and you could get just about anything weather-wise, but the weather seems fairly decent. Does that favor anybody or hurt anybody in this matchup? The fact that it'll be a decent day?
It favors the fans.
Right. Yeah, fair.
It favors the broadcast crews and the cameramen and all of that. But
the beer sales.
I don't think either team gets an edge because of it. In fact, I don't think either team, if it was bad weather, would get the edge. That's how close these two teams are matched up. I'm glad that the stadium in Winnipeg is below ground level, much like Mosaic. So while you can still get wind in there, it's so much more mitigated than it ever has been in Winnipeg. It's almost cuts it right out there. So it shouldn't affect, even if there's a little wind, it shouldn't affect the kicking game as much as last week in both games did. So I think the weather is ideal for fans. And I don't know if you guys heard it, but Dave Naylor, my coworker, he should I bring it up, guys? Should I bring it up? Because he just did a story on the best fans in Canada, and I'm I'm reluctant. I'm very reluctant, but I'll just tell you what he said. He said it was the Bomber fans, and he said it's all the sellouts. It's how loud they get. They have a really successful hockey team in their market, and they're still supporting and going, full out on Bombers. He called. This is not coming from me. Let me be clear on this. This is not a TSN thing even. Dave Naylor says the Winnipeg Blue Bomber fans are the best in the country.
Hey, they advertise it on their sideline banners. It's got to be true. Gotta be.
I just wonder. I tell you what, I think the Rider fans should just register that. Just keep it close by for next.
It was us three hobos on here that talked about subjective quotes, and Winnipeg has the best sunsets, and they have the best all this. So take your best and shove it, whatever. It's all subjective anyway. Hey, it's going to be awesome. Okay, the last thing I want to ask you, though, put your coaching hat on here. Because I was getting really curious on this. If Winnipeg, what do they usually rush 3 for the most part?
3 or 4, yep. But not many blitzes.
Yeah. So there you go. What do you think Saskatchewan's game planning right now against that?
Well, they've got to. If it were me, okay, and this is not from talking to the coach. First of all, coaches will never tell you their game plans in a playoff game. So you can ask any way you want. It's not happening. It's
almost as useless as asking what the best fans are. But continue.
Exactly. Or asking a hockey coach, the injury status of a player. Yeah, it's lower. It's somewhere below his neck, is what we're saying. But at the end of the day, here's what I would do. I would, in the running game, attack Willie Jefferson. I would go right at him. Make him be a run stopper, because he can wreck a game so quickly. He doesn't even have to make the sacks. He just gets in the throwing lane. He has a great knack to do that, best of all time. So, I would run the ball right at him on first down. And then, you're cut out. Someone muted Barney. He said enough is enough. No, you know what? That's what I would do on first down. And when it comes to Zach and it comes to getting some pressure at him, you got to make sure that the way they beat him, I think, was getting Brady out of the backfield and getting him the ball in the passing game. So they got to have a game plan for that. They have to be ready to do that. It might be man-to-man, but that's okay too.
Circling back to how we started this episode, when you have your 5 guys on the bench, and then sometimes the guys don't know when to hop the bench and when to go over. That's what we're dealing with right here. So we got it all handled over here. Glenn, have a great call. It's going to be beautiful weather-wise. It's going to be a heck of a game. Hopefully, you get a chance to watch the Hardy Cup a little bit as well between the U of R and U of S, because that should be a dandy as well. And we will regroup and we'll talk next week. Next week, we'll know who's going to the dance.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait. Thanks, guys.
Right on.
You bet.
That is press coverage with Glen Suitor for Quality Tire. 9 locations across Saskatchewan. It is the all-new Sports Cage. Watching that stream, if you're watching on YouTube, hammer the like button. It is the all-new Sports Cage on the home of the Rider, 620 CKRM. Welcome back. All-new Sports Cage on Thursday for Access Communications. It's Barney Shynkaruk, Chris Harris, and the C's and the Sheriff, Colson. We've been talking about so many different things today. 35 years of Degrassi Junior High. So the one episode, we've talked about what we've learned, because it was just, like you said, CanCon, Canadian content, very much like 90210 in the States, which I don't remember all that much. I was walking down the hallway and I was saying we're talking about Degrassi, and people started. There it is. There's the tune. What's her name? Wendy Watson?
Wendy Watson, yeah. Hopefully she's rich. Because she deserves every penny that she made off that song.
Yeah, no. We were going to try and play the Zit Remedy, which we did.
I was going to say, but you know what they say. everybody wants something, and they'll take your money.
Exactly.
Never give up.
So it's funny because if a lot of people out there are in, I guess, early 40s to maybe early 60s, 60-ish years old, like you grew up with that. And we talked about it at the start of the show. You didn't have, 200 channels. You had 12 or 13, and Degrassi was on at that time, and you always wanted to watch it. So you had to be punctual. Someone did text in that they used to tape it. Even then, like if you had a VCR with the capabilities of coding out time to tape something, like you were next level.
I would argue, and this thought just kind of popped into my head, I would challenge somebody to come up with a more influential show to the fabric of Canadian youth culture at that time for our generation than Degrassi. I don't think you can name one. I don't think there is one. Like, Canada has had a long history of shows that we remember. Like, you got your Beachcombers and your Littlest Hobo and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like how Degrassi is woven into all of our lives, that you can have a conversation with just about anybody, I bet you, about Degrassi. Whereas people would be like, I don't remember much about Beachcombers or Littlest Hobo or Bizarre
Tommy Hunter
or things
show.
like that. Yeah, like it's not the same. Like Degrassi, I would say it's probably the most influential Canadian television show that may have ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
My Mount Rushmore, which I always hate when people use Mount Rushmore of Canadian TV shows, Degrassi's there. This about me. I was a huge North of 60 fan. Like, right. I thought that show was so well put together. It was great. I watched every single episode while working radio in Swift Current. Super weird. I'd get Everett Hindley to tape it for me. I just loved it. But we talked about like the different episodes that were deep. The HIV episode was huge. Wheels, although it wasn't deep, it was more comical, but it did kind of shed like the light on, hey, just don't be taking crews around. And Curtis chimed in now with Uber. That's what everyone's doing. Like Wheels going, trying to find his dad in Port Hope and hopping in with a vacuum salesman in the station wagon. If you all remember the show, you know what happened there. Scott chimed in from Saskatoon, said he was going to find his real dad in Port Hope, Mike, and Mike was in a band called Mike and the Drifters. Like it just went deep. Spike becoming pregnant in high school, like hit home. There was just so many different things. And then, the Zit Remedy, the band. And then there was probably a small part of everybody's, high school where they thought, well, we could start a band. We can, hey, I got a vest and a weird hat and there's only 3 of them. We could start our band. I just pulled up the lyrics. Everybody wants something. They'll never give up. Everybody wants something. They'll take your money and never give up. Like that's poetry. Is it not? Yeah. Well, maybe
they don't write songs like that every day.
But, very though, like you said, the fabric of Canada, very tragically hip-ish.
Very.
You can always have a conversation with any Canadian about the hip, especially in our demographic. Speaking to that, the hip experience, this hip cover band, they're in Moose Jaw tonight at the Crush Can. They're in Saskatoon tomorrow, and then they're playing Revival here in Saskatoon on Saturday. I kid you not, Harry, it is probably one of the hardest tickets I've ever tried to get in Saskatchewan for any event, is to go watch this tragically hip cover band Saturday at Revival. Like it's nuts. And they're supposed to be really good. And so the problem is, and this, I never saw the Tragically Hip live.
Right. I only saw them once. At
Roadside Attraction?
Yep.
That's where I think everybody in the world except for me from Saskatchewan saw them. This is really, like legit. I don't know what I was doing, where I went. But just fabric of Canada. And Degrassi is right there. There's Travis, shout out on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line. And Degrassi, The Next Generation. Didn't watch it. Emma, Spike's daughter, wants to find and meet Shane, her dad, with Spike not wanting her to go because he's mentally not well, has issues, and lives in a group home institution. But Emma doesn't listen and goes and meets Shane and has a freak out breakdown over it because of how messed up Shane is.
Yeah.
They checked all the boxes. Right?
For sure. They hammered a lot of real world issues. And this is at a time like this is like early 90s, like 88, 89, 90, 91. Like that kind of stuff wasn't at the forefront.
Didn't talk about it. Sweep it under the rug. No,
right.
Don't talk about sexually transmitted diseases or getting pregnant or whatever. And then, we lived up to it. Still more to come. Hardy Bowl. Griffith Stadium, Saturday. It's right here on 620 CKRM, on 620 CKRM 2 with McGuire and Bidwell at 1 p.m. kickoff, 12:45 pregame show. We are going to talk to Ray Morrison, voice of the Saskatchewan Huskies, about the game. When we come back, it's Barney and Harry, the all-new Sports Cage. Thanks, Curtis. Streaming at sportscage.com. Welcome back to the all-new Sports Cage. Barney Shynkaruk, Chris Harris still here in the C's. We've been talking about it all week. Obviously, it's huge. Hardy Cup up in Saskatoon. That game is right here. Well, it's on the Deuce. On CKRM2, you can find it on Saturday. Just go to the website. You'll see CKRM2. The pregame show with Brendan McGuire and Derek Bidwell starts at 12:45. The play-by-play at 1 o'clock. Again, it's on CKRM2. You can catch all the news you need to on SportsCage.com. That's where we're streaming this if you're watching it right now. Harry and I were talking about it and reliving our memories of Hardy Cup pass and Huskies versus Rams and down here or up in Saskatoon. It's been a while. And the beauty part of it, we're going to go out on the Western Pizza guest hotline right now. Chris and I worked at Global Sports in Saskatoon for 5 years. And then this guy, we've talked to him before, he was on Global Sports just a little bit before Chris and I grew up watching him. The voice of the Huskies, Ray Morrison, joins us on, like I said, on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Ray, okay, let's just a tad. No, it's all good. Hey, how both of these teams get here is fascinating, unbelievable. Use whatever word you want there, but they both should probably be packed up, the old, lockers packed up in the garbage bag thing, but they're here. If you say who's got more momentum going into this, is it both? Can you pinpoint one?
No, you really can't. I mean, if this was, let's say it's a neutral site game in Davidson, you really can't, because if you're the Huskies, you cash in on an onside kick, you keep a drive alive, and then your kicker, who missed 2 field goals, kind of gives you the onside kick, places it perfectly, puts it into the offense's hands, and they win the football game with an 18-point fourth quarter. Down by 13, they come back and win by 5, right? For the Regina Rams, it is a 101-yard drive with a series of, it was great play calling by the Rams in that game against Manitoba to flush out the wide linebackers and just go with crossing patterns up the field until Nicholas Sirleaf makes the winning catch. So, I guess the only thing that you like if you're the Huskies is the fact that this game is at home, right? Because they only won 1 road game in the regular season. Won a road game when it counted in BC, but so did Regina in Winnipeg, right? So no, there's really not much to separate between these two teams going into this one. And I know we're trying to rack our brain thinking about that 2002 Hardy Cup, and you guys are making fun of my age here. Not a lot to me on that, but I will say that is the last time that a 3-4 matchup decided the Hardy Cup as well. So not only are we thinking about the last time they met in a Hardy Cup, but this is the last time that a 4-3 matchup will decide the league champion.
Huskies. Healthy, they're banged up too, right? Again, I guess it's late. It's football. Both teams seem to be having injuries. What's up with their injury report, I guess, Ray, as far as you know right now?
They're relatively healthy. One of the big pieces of news coming out of that UBC game that we just literally learned, and Blake Dill did a good job in hiding this, was their key tailback, Isaiah Knight. We learned that like an hour before the game when we arrived, that he wasn't there. But no, the Huskies are relatively healthy in the skill positions, right? So it'll be Riker Frank against Marshall Erickson. It'll be Nicholas Sirleaf against Huskies' best outside receivers at Branson Pipko, and the inside receivers like Daniel Wiebe. So it's going to be a good matchup. So the Huskies, if there are some significant nicks, they certainly aren't talking about it. One thing that actually helped the teams this year, guys, too, is the fact that normally you play 5 games, you have the bye, and then you play 3 in the regular season. This year, the way the bye fell, it was 6 and then 2 regular season games around that Thanksgiving break. That actually may help both of these teams going into this game.
Ray, I think you could probably argue, or wouldn't argue, football more than any other sport is a systems thing. Guys, they get their program, they stick to it. But because we touched on it, because these guys are both these teams are kind of playing with house money at this point, does that maybe loosen up the play calling, loosen up the game plan a little bit to maybe take more risks than you maybe would? Like, what does it do to their preparations?
Well, it's interesting because Barney, how much snow is there on the ground in Regina? Is it there? Like, is it on the ground?
Currently none. You got to find a real shady spot to find any snow.
It went away because we didn't have any up north in Saskatoon. So it's going to be a gorgeous day. So probably more to the point of just that is the fact that both teams are going to be able to open up the playbook, Chris. And I think that's what's kind of neat about this one is you don't always get that on a November 9th day, the opportunity to kind of open things up. So that probably weighs in more so than house money. I think if the Rams or the Huskies finish first or second, they would want to win this game just as bad. So I don't think that sort of means that you're throwing caution to the wind. I think that there's going to be a real conservative effort for the Rams to run Marshall Erickson and the Huskies to run Riker Frank. And until the defense proves they can stop it, that's what both teams are going to get a steady dose of, I think. So I think it's going to be quite a conservative football game. And yet, both teams have proven that with a minute and a half or 2 minutes on the clock, they can put points on the board. So that aspect of kind of wide open football and just letting it all hang out, they know they can do that if they need to, but you don't want to do that early and make a mistake and give a gift to the other team.
I don't know if we can send a quick video link to either Josh Clausen or Brad Grass, former weather guys from Global up in Saskatoon. But it's because they would come and give us the weather report for Saturday, and it's supposed to be 9 degrees, moderate wind, I guess, as far as Sasky goes, 19 gusting to 29. Perfect afternoon for football. Let's talk about maybe the home field advantage, like you talked about, that the Huskies have. Griffith Stadium, it's not a big place. It can be loud. They have the side there, and that's where where the Rams are going to be. There's going to be lots of chirping going on, just as if the Huskies were here. Possibly, if they opened up the other side of Mosaic, or if they played at Libel, then they'd be right on top of them. But I've seen it before. Harry, you and I have covered it as well too. When that opposing team, that other sideline at Griffith, it could come to blows. Like, they're so ruthless, and they're right on top of you, and the chirps will get real. There is some home field advantage there for sure.
Well, now since the new clubhouse has come in, I don't know if you know this, but the visitors are in front of the press box side.
Okay, even worse.
Okay, so they switch that because now the Huskies locker room is in the north end, right? So they go to the non-press box side, and where Brendan McGuire and I will be calling the game, we'll be over the Rams. But that said, emotions are going to be running high. There's no question about that, and you sort of see the odd 10 or 15 yard penalty that you got to make sure you don't take. The other thing too, a guy like Riker Frank who plays. He's from Regina, right? A guy like that. There's lots of guys that know each other on both sides. And that's the big thing. It's not necessarily the crowd as much as just keeping your emotion in check. And some of the veteran guys are going to be not only playing real well, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but they will be working to get in the heads of the offensive players. And that goes on both sides. And so, just to make sure that you're measured, that always comes from within.
I've had that. I think you have a little bit, Ray, too. I've had the luxury of living in both cities, now, right? And there was always that rivalry. And when I was in Saskatoon, I looked down on Regina, and I was like, Regina. And then I got to realizing, like I said yesterday on the show, it's not like moving from Saskatoon to, or Greenwich Village to, it's Saskatoon and Regina. It's Sasky. It's really the same thing. But Harry, you know as well as I do, like there is like a rivalry, and there's a lot of people in both cities that still really hate each other. I think it's more Saskatoon to Regina. And then Regina came on in like 99. Like we talked to Frank McChrystal yesterday. Like Harry, we remember them smashing the Hilltops. Then all of a sudden they're playing CIS. And Frank brought up a good point. Like that school, U of R is really small. They don't have graduate programs. So they're like a small school, and they're here. So in a small way, it's not like the David versus Goliath, but it's the little guy in Sasky versus the big guy.
For sure. Like the way that when I was digging up some little factoids here, like it's just one program that has a huge legacy against an upstart one that doesn't. It's like that history. Like you have 21, I think the Huskies have won 21 Hardy Cups and the Rams have won 1. So it is kind of David and Goliath, just from like a historical aspect. Like, yeah, the teams, they're 3 seed, 4 seed, but the prestige factor is definitely in the Huskies' backyard, and so I think the Rams would always want to win. And what a year for Regina versus Saskatoon, because you had Hilltops and Thunder as well. Like it's been a pretty good year for rivalries from the football standpoint in this province.
How do you paint the picture of everything, Ray? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I remember it vividly because in '99, when the Rams joined Canada West Football, making the jump from junior, they went 0-8 that first year. And it was a wake-up call. But then I remember, the board of directors for the Regina Rams are some of my favorite people in the day, right? So the second year they go 4-4, and then they win the league title, and they were kind of joking. Well, there's no competition here. Let's move on to the next level. And that was just, the conversation with a couple of pints, right? But I was sending you an image of me back in 2000, 60 pounds and dark hair ago, that I actually covered the Rams' first Vanier Cup appearance. So that was against Marcel Belfay's Ottawa GGs at the time. And it was a quick initiation into U Sports or CIS or CIAU football back then for the Regina Rams. So, it was kind of neat to see Frank propel that quickly to a national championship game. It only took him a couple of years, but you're right. Regina is a smaller school. Saskatoon is the college town, right? So there's no competition with a pro town in Saskatoon. And that's the thing I find with, it's interesting. Since we at Patterson Media started this Husky Fan app, I'm not sure that something like that would work as well as it does in Saskatoon, because we don't have any pro teams here other than the Rush, which is kind of opposite of the football season here, right? So, I mean, in Calgary or UBC or Winnipeg, you're battling with the Jets and the Flames and the Canucks at UBC and Vancouver, along with all the junior teams there. So there is that, and that I think helps.
Well, we
But that said,
he's back.
We lost you for a brief second. We lost you for a brief second.
I probably wasn't saying anything interesting.
No, it was.
But no, I was just kind of saying that we kind of look at the Saskatchewan situation, the Saskatoon situation, because both of you are very familiar with it, and it is a unique market where Husky athletics has a high and sort of rightful place in the sport landscape.
For sure.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome though. Like we go back, we talked to Frank McChrystal, and like we all remember, like just maybe the last thing that I want to say is like Saskatoon, we knew him, like he was like this, I don't want to say football god, but like Daryl Leeson. It's like, who Daryl Leeson? And Daryl smashing the Hilltops around, and then he kind of went to U of C, then he's back, and in Regina, finishing things off. Like that guy was so good, like from Hudson Bay. And Frank told it, like, if anyone wants to go listen to the podcast from yesterday, Frank kind of tells a story of how they found him. And that was a great rivalry while he was there. But yeah, it is interesting though. Regina hasn't been there near as much. Let's move to the CFL. I know you wanted to talk about the big game in Winnipeg too, Ray. What are you seeing here? Like I think, and we've talked about it, I think this is a good 3.5 points for the Bombers. I think that could be down to 1.5. I think because the Riders just have a ton of mojo going into this one too.
You know, it's funny. So Winnipeg had the second last week of the regular season off, and then they had the bye during the semifinal weekend as well. So they will be well rested, which might, bode well for them. But I honestly think it's Brady Oliveira and it's AJ Willett, right? That's what it comes down to. If you can dictate that line of scrimmage, it opens up so much of the passing game. If you can kind of dictate things through the offensive line, kind of like we were just talking about the Rams and Huskies, a little bit different, but sort of the same. But that's what I see winning this game, because you talk about 1.5 points, it might be that close, right? So you might not win a game with 31 points, but you might win a game with 31 minutes in time of possession. And in this West Final, that's sort of what I see there.
33,000 people, there's going to be massive home field advantage. Even if it's 2,000-3,000 Saskatchewan fans there, it's going to be really loud. What's the loud? Here's a tip. All your years of TSN patrolling sideline, what's the loudest game you've ever been to on the sideline?
Probably that 2013 Grey Cup game when they beat Henry Burris and the Hamilton Ticats. That was probably the loudest I've heard that stadium. You think of all the pressure that was on that Rider team. They went and got Dwight Anderson and G. Roy Simon, and that was probably the loudest that I've heard a football game. But the loudest event I was ever at was the 1991 World Junior Hockey Championship game at SaskTel Center, when Barney and Eric Lindros dropped a big Canadian flag over the Canada-Russia championship final. That was the loudest building I've been in, but probably the loudest football game at Mosaic was probably the 2013 Grey Cup game.
Funny tidbit. Funny tidbit from the 91 World Juniors and that flag. When we interviewed Mike Sillinger on the Monday Nooner, he told the story about Carl Lindros, and all the parents were sitting together, and Mike's dad rolled up and he had a jean jacket, the Saskatchewan tuxedo on, jean jacket and jeans, and Carl was like, sorry sir, this is reserved for parents of the players. And Silly's old man was like, well, yeah, my kid's out there. Right there. So it's a funny story that he told. Okay, Ray, have a great call. Tell my West Side homie there, Rich Kabrook, I said hi. And
I will do that, sir. Yeah, you bet.
You still might see my eyeballs at Griffiths. I'm looking to who's all going up. If there's a way to get up there, it's going to be an awesome atmosphere. Have a good one, Ray. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man. Take care.
See you, Ray Morrison calls the game. Like he said, that app they have, huskiesfan.ca, it's a good follow. Ray's at Ray with a W Morrison on Twitter. Him and Rich Kabrook will have the call up there. Brennan McGuire and Derek Bidwell down here. I'm trying to think what's the most, Harry, when you go back, Griffith, most packed you ever remember that place? There was a couple playoff games. Oh, God. Yeah, and that's the real grass days of Griffith. There was no field turf. So when it snowed, it was like the Gordie Howe Bowl thing. It was don't scrape off the snow because you're going to end up playing in a parking lot. But it was Griffith always had great turf. I can't remember. I'm just trying to think, and it was loud though. And then now Ray brought up a good point that the visitors are shifted to the other side. Because there was the one, I think it was the Rams, and then the Laval-Vanier Cup game, which I wasn't at, but it got ruthless on the sideline to Laval, which rightly so. Wouldn't expect anything else from Sask, you guys. Okay, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and wrap quick. It is the all-new Sports Cage, watching the stream at sportscage.com and on the home of football in Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM. Welcome back to the all-new Sports Cage. Just a few minutes here to wrap things up. Massive Thursday night football game. We talked about it. I don't know who everyone else is sprinkling on there. I don't know. I'm going back and forth here, but I think I'm just going to play the over 52.5. What do you like, Harry?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's kind of one of those things. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's just easier to play the over-under rather than to pick a side.
Well, and watch it be like 22-4. And you're like, come on. How didn't I see that? How didn't I see it? Always fun, buddy. Thanks so much for doing this again. Let's do it again maybe next week. Always. You betcha. Tomorrow, I'm back here. I think DA is going to be here. Number of guests. We got Scott Schultz. He's going to want to talk probably about the Rider game. Schultz, always a beauty. We got Farhan Lalji, high school football around the Horn. Campbell's taking on St. Joe's in the provincial final, then all the 6A, 9A. It's everything. It's the all-new Sports Cage. We are the home of football in Saskatchewan. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.